There are some properly cool cars that I just don't think get the love that they deserve, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about 5 in particular that you can buy for under £15,000. They're all very different, but they're all quite rare, and they are definitely underrated, at least in my opinion. And I really like rare and underrated cars because it immediately makes you stand out when driving your car around. Only the people that know will know. So if you want to see this video again at a lower price range, then do hit the like button, subscribe as well if you're new. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. The VW Group is renowned for some incredible hot hatchbacks, particularly cars these days like the Golf R and Audi RS3. Both of those cars are pretty common and well loved within the car community. That's why I think the Seat Leon Cupra R is so underrated, as it shares its engine with the Golf R as well as the RS3's little sibling, the S3. That engine is a 2-litre turbocharged inline-4 block which makes 261 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 6 seconds, slightly slower than the Golf R given that it's front-wheel drive rather than all-wheel drive. On release, it was the most powerful Seat ever made, and it paved the way for some of the Nürburgring front-wheel drive track record holders that we've seen today. It's also pretty rare, with just 312 on the roads here in the UK at the time of making this video, which helps it become a bit more of a head-turner. I've not been in an R yet, but I have been in a step down from it, the standard Cupra, and even that feels like a really fun hot hatch. Compared to the standard car, the formula isn't dissimilar to the Golf R, with the slightly more aggressive body kit and interior, but if you really like a bit of flair, in the UK we got the limited K1 edition, which added an even more angular exterior, a larger spoiler, a central exhaust, and a few other nice bits. One major difference, however, is that it never came with DSG, so it's manual only, which I know won't work for some people, but personally I think manual is the most fun way to go with hot hatches. These start at around the 10k mark, with £15,000 getting you a 2012 model with around 70,000 miles on the clock. It's a pretty good engine reliability too, which is always a bonus, and getting parts is super easy given the number of cars it shares its block with. Add on relatively low running costs with 35 miles per gallon fuel economy and you are laughing. We're staying with the VW Group as we move on to our second car on this list, the very cool VW Passat R36, effectively a family car as it comes as a saloon or estate, but for the parent that doesn't want to let go of their love for interesting, different, fast and damn cool cars. Part of this car's cool factor comes from its 3.6 litre VR6 engine, which puts out 295 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 5.6 seconds, made possible by it being all-wheel drive. And when I say VR6, for those viewers who don't know the difference, if a V6 engine is 6 cylinders off at diagonal angles to each other in a V shape, the VR6 is more like putting 2 inline 3 engines next to each other and offsetting them ever so slightly. Hopefully that makes some sense to you. The reason why you make a VR6 engine is to fit the same number of cylinders as a V6 into a smaller space so it can fit into smaller engine bays. Of course, R36 stands for the 3.6 engine, and the rest of the car follows typical VW R aesthetic conventions with the larger alloys, the DSG gearbox, the modified body kit with spoilers, Recaro seats, lowered suspension, aluminium trim, and the classic spattering of R logos throughout. It's an incredibly rare car too, with fewer than 140 on the roads here in the UK, so seeing one really is a treat to the discerning car lover, and given you can get these starting anywhere from around the 10k mark, they really do offer great value for money. £15,000 will get you a 2009 model with around 70,000 miles on it, by the way. There are some known issues with these, including the engine chains, mechatronic ECU for the DSG gearbox, and electronic handbrake, all of which are relatively expensive to fix. It's also worth noting that in the UK these only came as DSG Auto, so the mechatronic issue will be relevant to all cars. We've had a hot hatch, a family car, and now a 2-seater sports car in the Vauxhall VX220, which is effectively a Lotus paid for by General Motors with a Vauxhall badge on it. And it's that badge which cements this car as an underrated one, as I would suggest if it had a Lotus badge on it, it might be a little bit more conventionally desirable as opposed to a brand which makes cars as average as the Meriva, Astra and the likes. It comes with a couple of engine options, including the 2-litre turbocharged inline-4 which puts out 197 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.7 seconds, which comes as a result of it weighing less than 950 kilograms. I mentioned General Motors paid for it, and that's because they did a deal with Lotus to bankroll the second generation Elise, as long as Lotus created a sports car for the Vauxhall and Opel brands based on that new chassis they'd be building. Lotus had to make the Series 2 Elise as a result of crash safety regulations, and the investment from General Motors enabled them to increase the size of their Hethel factory to build both the Elise and the VX220. The turbocharged version arrived after the naturally aspirated example, as owners wanted something with a little bit more performance, but the rest of the formula is very similar to the Elise. In fact, I've seen many reviews note that the VX220 is effectively a better Elise with a less interesting badge attached. My favourite part of the car, which reminds me heavily of Lotus, is that stripped out interior, and the car overall is a well loved one on track days. To get one, you'll need to spend a minimum of around £13,000, with £15,000 getting your 2003 turbocharged example with high mileage. Water ingress into the interior is known on these, and the seats are known to come loose from their mountings. Engines are solid though, as long as they're kept cool, so checking coolant levels can be a lifesaver. So I hope you enjoyed this video. A quick reminder to hit the like button if you haven't already, and subscribe as well if you're new. Also, let me know in the comments down below which car in the entire world is the most underrated. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. The Mercedes SLK often gets labelled, probably fairly, as a hairdresser's car due to its small stature, convertible hardtop roof, and an era in which it came from. That means the SLK55 AMG can sometimes fly under the radar, despite it being a bit of a beast, and a car that I think is insanely cool for the money. It comes with a 5.4 litre V8 engine, which is way bigger than you'd expect for a car of this size. It puts out 354 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.7 seconds, matching the Vauxhall we just spoke about. Now, to me, this little car looks a lot like a miniature version of the hallowed Mercedes McLaren SLR, particularly from the front, and that's definitely not a bad thing. That AMG body kit really works on the car and makes it look way cooler than the standard car. For reference, this car sits on 18-inch alloys in front of lower and stiffer suspension, and it has a slightly upgraded interior. It kind of feels like a baby Grand Tourer more than a sports car though. I wouldn't say it competes directly with cars like the Mazda MX-5 for example, given the power, price and all the rest. It wasn't however the range-topping car, as there was in fact a Black Series example which took the whole formula to another level, and only 120 were made. It's way more of a bucket list car, but I actually don't think that many people really know about either of them, making the non-black edition incredible value for money. These start at around the 10k mark, with £15,000 getting your 2005 example with around 70,000 miles on the clock. There are a few known problems. Make sure the roof mechanism works and has been looked after, same goes for the gearbox, and there are known electrical issues which can cause misfires, so a test drive may well be worth it. Taking the top spot, we have the Lexus IS F, by far the most difficult car to get into in our price range, but it is possible given the start at our video's limit of £15,000 with pretty high mileage. But that mileage may not be a huge problem given Lexus's sparkling reliability record, and indeed the ISF is known to be pretty good, with only a few known issues which typically don't cause crazy headaches. Water pumps, engine knocking at idle, and shaky rear view mirrors are known, but mostly on early examples, as many of the gremlins were smoothed out before the car's end of life. And that engine is a bit of a beast, a 5 litre V8 to be exact, which puts out 417 brake horsepower, the most of any car on this list, taking it to 60 in 4.6 seconds, which is not bad at all. Now this is genuinely a special car, but I'm not sure many people would know what it is or even notice it out on the roads, partially due to rarity, as there are fewer than 190 on the roads here in the UK right now. It was developed at the terrifying Nürburgring circuit and released alongside the hallowed LFA. It's lower and more planted than the standard IS of course, but also wider and bulgier in order to fit that V8 in the front. That V8 was modified by Yamaha's Formula 1 engine program, helping to give it the performance and longevity that Lexus have become increasingly known for. The exterior is cool, but it remains pretty sleeperish, and the interior is cool too, with the 4 bucket seats for all occupants. It has better fuel economy than its competitors, and it's also quite practical and spacious, so much so that it ended up being used as an interceptor for police in Humberside here in the UK. Basically, if you love the LFA but don't have LFA money, I would say this is the poor man's Lexus substitute. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd really appreciate a like and a subscription. Both of those go a long way to helping the channel out. Also, a reminder to let me know in the comments what your most underrated car ever actually is. I would say the Aston Martin DB4, because the Aston Martin DB5 is one that everyone thinks about, but the DB4 is just beautiful. Anyway, huge thanks to the patrons, their support, and to you guys as well for watching. If you want to see another video on a bunch of very cool cars, then click up here and subscribe down here.